Redskins very close, Braves, Detroit Pistons. You know how difficult it's been to be a Redskins, UVA football, and UVA basketball fan for so long? Now Tony's here.
Yeah, well, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. It's been really hard to be an Eagles fan for a long time until last year.
Your Philly team's doing.
Yep.
Yeah, you got some success. Full screen? Okay, let's make the full screen so the mics are on when we're doing a full screen. The full screen is to notify people. And then after the full screen is pulled, let's give it 30 seconds on the full screen, Judah. And my friend, you're going to give me the countdown on that, right? Okay, so there's a full screen.
There you go.
Thank you, Judah. We're excited to talk to everybody in Charlottesville. About 30 seconds away, guys, from Ray Caddell. If you'd like to join us on the live stream and ask some questions, we're happy to take your questions. Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's fantastic to be with you. My name is Jerry Miller. A true pleasure to be with you on a Tuesday with this gentleman, Ray Caddell, an entrepreneur, a musician, a real estate broker. Before we get to this man and the soon-to-be star of the show, we're going to pay the bills and thanks Greenberry's Coffee. For more than 25 years, Greenberry's Coffee has powered Charlottesville and Central Virginia as its longest-running coffee roasters. Ray, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Good to be here.
We have had some fantastic off-air conversations, so I know this interview is going to be fantastic. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's get the background on you here. Since 1987, you've been proud to call Charlottesville and Central Virginia your home.
I have indeed.
You are a real estate broker, a talented and successful one, and a talented and successful musician who runs a plethora of bands from a booking and scheduling standpoint.
All true.
How the heck do you do this, Ray Caddell?
You know, people ask me that all the time. I think the most important thing in how I do that is Google Calendar. I think without Google Calendar, I have no chance at all. The second most important thing is of course, my wife, who works with me full time. And not only keeps the home fires burning, but she keeps the fires at the office burning too.
You use both sides of the brain. Fortunate with my business, I'm using both sides as well. It's very challenging. It's something that I don't think everyone can do. Which profession is more difficult for you to execute, or do you have them both on lockdown right now, Ray?
Oh, well, they're certainly not on lockdown. I mean, I get surprised every day with something either in the real estate business or in the music business. They're so different, but they have a lot of similarities, and they're both fun. I enjoy them. If I didn't enjoy them, I go, that's what my dad said. I'll never forget, my dad was a glass blower of all things in Wilmington, Delaware, where I grew up his whole career. And he worked for the DuPont Company. And there's a little Charlottesville tie in there. The Bronfman family, who lived here, who owned Seagram's, bought a chunk of the DuPont Company. And they said, hey, we're going to have to lay a lot of guys off. And my dad was sort of a middle, he was a technician kind of guy.
Okay.
Never made a whole lot of money, but the DuPont Company took very, very good care of my family for a long time. So they went to company, they said at the board meeting, we're going to lay guys off, and there were still DuPonts on the board at that time. And the legend said, you see that big oval that says DuPont? That's the name of the company. That's our last name. We're not laying anybody off. We've never laid anybody off, and we're not starting now. So the Bronfmans had seats on the board. They said, well, we got to do something. So they added company-wide. They said, whoever you are, we'll add 10 years to your age, 10 years to your service with the company, compute your pension. You have 30 days to make up your mind. So my father said it took him 30 minutes to make up his mind.
Right. That's a great package, right?
He retired at 54 instead of 65. You know, everything was great. But the one, he taught me a million things, but the one thing I'll always remember, and he didn't invent it, and it's just stands true this day, and I tell my kids, find something you enjoy doing, figure out how to do it well, and try to figure out how to make some money at it. Because if you approach the whole thing from the other angle, you'll never be happy just starting with the money.
I totally agree, and I feel that way. When you make your passion your profession, you'll never work a day in your life. Feel lucky to be doing that with I Love CVille. It's obvious he's doing it with what he's doing. Todd Stanley on the live stream says hello to both of us and says we sound great and look good. Thank you, Todd Stanley. Jump in if you have any questions for myself or Ray Caddell.
Hey, Todd. I got children his age, so we don't both look the same good, I'll tell you that.
He's looking good, Todd. Come on. Let me throw this to you here. 1987, you get to Charlottesville. Mm-hmm. Now, your wife is from Charlottesville.
Born many generations.
Okay, many generations in Charlottesville. Did you move to Charlottesville to be close to your wife's family? What brought you to this fine city?
No, I didn't know my wife then.
Oh, you met her here in Charlottesville?
Absolutely.
Okay, why'd you come here?
I came for a real estate deal.
Okay.
I came to help structure the deal for the original sale of what's now Dunlora.
Awesome.
I was working in Virginia Beach in the real estate business. A nightclub owner, and a lot of people don't know this story, a nightclub owner and a dentist from Virginia Beach owned Dunlora. And it was time to sell. And this is a long, convoluted story, but I got hired to come work here. And you know what? I really liked it here. And I talked to my first wife, and I said, you know, I like this town. So we had little babies, and so here we came. And yeah, I was right. It was a good move.
Charlottesville, from a real estate standpoint, you get here in '87. You're now, what, 31 years later? What a great career path for you. I mean...
Yeah, it's worked out pretty well,
You talk about a market. I mean, it's a booming real estate market. The values of home have really appreciated. Sure, we've had some downtimes, but over time, the Charlottesville market has proven to be a good investment. I mean, in some ways, being an entrepreneur is about working hard. It's about busting your tail. It's about being a visionary. A little luck is important, too.
Well, there's no question about that. Although I will tell you that I just reading something the other day in a real estate magazine, the percentage of real estate agents that don't make it past year 5 is roughly the same, and it's in the high 80s. So it's a very, very difficult business. You can sort of stumble around for a little while and sell your friends' houses and your brother-in-law and stuff like that. But sooner or later, you have to figure out...
You're going to run out of easy people.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So
how have you done it?
You know, when I came here, it was interesting. I interviewed with some big real estate companies here in town, and they said, oh, you know, you don't know anybody here. It's going to be impossible. And I'm like, really? Because I came off the road in a band in Virginia Beach, and I didn't really know anybody except some people in the bar business. And, yeah, I figured out how to do it there, and I'll figure out how to do it here.
How important was it for you and your happiness? Because let's be honest, your profession, and I'm not just speaking you, but anyone's profession is going to help determine their happiness and quality of life.
Well, I think it's everything.
Yeah, the one thing we do more in life, and really for me is work. I mean, I would love to change it where I'm spending more time with my family, but I'm at the point now with a young family, a young child, that I have to work hard to provide for them. It's like this catch-22. So like where I'm going with this is our professions determine so much of our happiness because we do it for so long. And where I'm going with this, how important for you was it to include the music piece into your everyday life?
Sure. Well, the music piece is never going anywhere. You know, I started playing the trumpet in 3rd grade, and I bring that up for an interesting reason. So they came to the school, the music store came to the school, and they put all the instruments out, and then the guy from the music store played each one of them, and they gave you a pamphlet, and you're supposed to take it home to your parents. So I took it home to my parents. I said, I want to play the trumpet. And my parents are not musical at all, and they just always found a way for me and my 2 brothers to do whatever we wanted to do. I have no idea how they figured it out. Oh, gosh, yeah, the best. And they said, why do you want to play the trumpet? I said, because it's the most beautiful instrument of them all. Well, what I didn't know was the guy who came and demonstrated all the instruments was a trumpet player. Awesome. That's why it sounded so good. So if it weren't for him, who knows what would have happened in a huge part of my life. And if you fast forward 56, almost 55 years, I played a job with the Temptations.
The Temptations.
I've played with the Temptations lots of times. Yeah, they're one of my favorites. Outside Philadelphia, and I sat down in a trumpet section, and the guy introduced himself to me, sitting next to me, and I said, he said, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from Charlottesville. I said, but I'm really from Wilmington, Delaware. He said, really, me too. I said, what's your name? He said, my name's Jimmy Cara. I said, he was an older guy, clearly. Anyway, we got talking. He was the guy. He was the guy from 3rd grade.
Way.
Oh, yeah. He was the guy. Yep.
That helped you fall in
Absolutely.
love with the trumpet.
If it was not him, and he's on Facebook, and we talk about it sometimes.
How'd you make the connection?
Just going, you know, I was up there, and I knew some of those guys, and there's Wilmington is unbelievably a great jazz town. And I believe it started, well, there are all kinds of jazz musicians that came from there. But there was a guy there, an educator named Hal Schiff, and every summer he'd have a thing called the Jazz Workshop. And he'd bring guys down from New York, big shot jazz guys, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, Pepper Adams, Roland Hanna. He'd bring them down, and they would teach advanced but younger students about jazz and big band and stuff like that. I remember like it was yesterday, sitting in a classroom at the Wilmington School of Music, learning to improvise, just me and Herbie Hancock. Who gets those kind of chances?
Yeah, those are lifetime stories. Yeah. What's playing with the Temptations like?
Hold on one second. And to fast forward from that Hal Schiff guy, his son, Dave Schiff, is the sax player in Big Ray and the Kool Kats today.
That is so.
It's a long time.
Small
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
Well, how about the Temptations? Pete?
Sure. The nice thing about the Temptations is the Temptations, first of all, I believe in oldies groups that have the absolute right to use the name. There's probably 42 groups of Temptations flying around. There's one original Temptation left alive, one. His name's Otis Williams. He's still, the group that's called, if you see The Temptations, that's who it is, or it's wrong. You might see
some variation of the brand.
Yeah. And some of it's legal and some of it's not legal. So just for lots and lots of years, I've always had the opportunity to play with everybody from the Temptations, lots of places, but including right here at the Paramount. You know, I don't want to name drop, but Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and Sammy Davis and Engelbert and Tom Jones. And, you know, when you're a horn player, a lot of times it's getting in the, just sort of getting on the right track. And, yeah, the Temptations, even today, and Otis got to be in his 70s, I guess, still give a fabulous show. The current lead singer is the guy from Tower of Power for 10 years, so he's a monster. Larry Braggs. About every 3 or 4 years they show up at the Paramount. I encourage you to come see him next time.
I certainly will. Colleen Tyler, thank you for joining us on the feed. She gives you some props and some thumbs up. Ray Caddell joining us. Did you ever consider, you know, I'm going music full time. This is my passion. I know you love real estate. You're a tremendous negotiator. You're a visionary. You understand the market. But did you ever say, I just want to go with the music?
You know, I went with the music full time. Yeah. I did 8 years.
No real estate, I meant.
Oh yeah. I did. I mean, before I did 8 years with Gladys Knight and the Pips. I did 3 years with a completely insane Elvis impersonator. Yeah, there were a lot of years where I didn't. It was probably 10 years I didn't even have an apartment. You know, I was just,
you were on the road.
Yeah, all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
was it hard?
You know, I was like 27. It was pretty
so you're
great.
Just living the dream, dude. That's awesome. Yeah.
Doing what I love to do, staying in great hotels, eating great food. Yeah, it was certainly no way to try to have a relationship and raise a family or anything like that. If your question is, do I ever consider it now or even in the last 25 years? No, it's not. I love the way that I do it now. I work when I want, where I want. I make pretty good money at it. I'm able to service my clients and customers a little better by building some other smaller groups that are sort of under my umbrella.
Sure.
No, go full time. You can't do it in this town. You cannot do it in this town.
Right. The ones that are trying to do it in this town are having a hard time.
No, it's so sad. Let me make sure I just say this right. So Dave Matthews ruined this town for musicians.
Explain this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, I have tremendous respect for the whole Dave Matthews organization. Those are guys, you weren't here yet, but you could go to Tracks. Did Tracks even?
I did, yeah.
You could go to Tracks.
My first year at UVA.
You could see Dave Matthews.
For like $5.
Or free sometimes.
Yeah, right.
And there'd be 20 people in the audience.
I saw Agents of Good Roots at Tracks.
Sure.
For like $5. And I'm on the front row watching this kick-ass band playing, and I'm like, how is this $5?
The Dave Matthews Band, first of all, very talented. Second of all, really, really, really worked at their craft. Sure. Did it the hard way and had some great business advice from Korn, of course. But the problem is, young people today think, Dave Matthews, it's easy.
Yeah.
Now, there was nothing easy about it. Nothing easy about it.
Put in perspective the effort Dave has to go from bartender at Miller's.
That's the legend.
Okay.
Tell the truth, though.
Tell me? I don't know.
Bar back. Not bartender, the guy who brought the ice and emptied the garbage. That was Dave Matthews.
So Dave Matthews is the bar back at Miller's trying to play open mics around town.
Right, and begging his boss at Miller's to let him sit in the corner and play the guitar a little bit.
And you remember this?
Oh, sure.
Okay, and put that in. Give us paint the picture.
It's lightning in a bottle. I mean, it's just lightning in a bottle. I'm not. That's not the kind of music I listen to.
Sure. But you appreciate music.
Yeah. I appreciate his music, but I so appreciate the hard work. Oh gosh, it's unbelievable. And kids today, you know, it's a pretty. I mean, if you want that kind of success, you know, you got to get to Nashville, or you got to get to L.A., or you got to get to New York. And if you go to New York, as you walk through the subway, every time you turn around, there's a guy playing with his hat out that's better than you are.
That's so talented.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't even know what to tell people. I sometimes speak to, particularly at Almar High School, the jazz musicians. I said, you know that whole thing about when your parents say, get something to fall back on? Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Whole lot of sense.
Stan Hamrick says hello.
Hey,
Stan
Stan.
Hamrick in the mix. Guys, ask Ray or I a question here.
Stan is part of the Great Party Bands family.
Stan Hamrick.
Stan, now you want to talk about a left brain, right brain guy that we were talking about earlier. Stan is not the world's greatest guitar player, although he's talented. He's not the world's greatest singer, although he's talented. Here's what Stan does. When you hire Stan to play at your restaurant or your event or your home or whatever it is, Stan comes, I call it reverse karaoke. Stan passes song lists out to all your guests and say, pick one. What do you want me to play? Smart
guy.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
because he keeps everybody happy.
Oh, gosh,
Everyone thinks this guy's doing him a favor.
And he's not up there. I'm up there every night guessing what I think people might want to play. Stan goes out on, I do some entertainment booking for American Cruise Lines, and Stan goes out on those boats, and they love him for that.
Do you think there's a Dave Matthews today if it isn't for Core and Capsule?
No.
Okay, because Dave at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave at the time...
And there's no Beatles without Brian Epstein. I mean, there's always a guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dave at the time is in his 20s. He's partying. He's living the rock star lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with partying in your 20s. You know, we all know what he's doing. Corin sees talent, makes him legitimate.
Who also came from nowhere.
Yeah.
By the way, Corin's deal...
Corin dropped out of UVA.
Corin got in the whole hospitality music business.
Right.
Buying a keg of beer and selling red cups of it off the porch.
Unbelievable, right? I mean, the guy's an entrepreneur.
Oh, that's his pictures in a dictionary next to entrepreneur.
Is there someone who is more influential and more momentum, driving more momentum in Charlottesville than Core and Capsule?
I don't believe so, no. In a lot of different directions, too.
I don't
always agree with what he's doing either.
Put in perspective, which give me one.
Well, the whole pavilion thing made me... I got a little crook in my neck over that. And we had a little argument on the front page of Daily Progress about it many, many years ago. Because I thought, that ship has long sailed, that the whole thing we had with the families on the grass and the whole thing, I thought that's what Fridays After 5. Once Fridays After 5, it was on the downtown mall before you again.
Sure.
Down in front of the Omni, they used to set up a stage. When it moved down to the grass, I just thought that was such an intimate, small town, Charlottesville kind of thing, where all of a sudden it became part of
his machine,
the pavilion.
Yeah.
Not so. It wasn't so much Core that I had a problem with. I just didn't like the location. I didn't like that the city got involved in it financially. I didn't like the IRB. I didn't like much about it.
How should it have been done differently? What would you have done differently?
I don't think I would have changed it.
But I mean, if adding the pavilion, Ray, and let's play devil's advocate with you, adding the pavilion is arguably the second best venue from a musical standpoint in Charlottesville that can hold the most people. I mean, the John Paul Jones is number one. Pavilion's 2. What's Jefferson's 3? Southern's probably 4.
I wouldn't leave the Paramount out.
Okay. Oh, sorry, the Paramount. Okay, the Paramount's the Paramount's 2. Jefferson's 3, Southern's 4. After that, it's just playing in bars.
Sure, that's for sure.
So having the pavilion and having another bona fide building,
we have embarrassment of riches
right,
here. There's no question about it. My question is, are the taxpayers supposed to be involved in that?
Let's play devil's advocate with you. If we get James Brown, I don't know why, James Brown played the pavilion. Snoop Dogg played the pavilion.
Sure.
If we get these national acts playing the pavilion, tax dollars subsidizing the pavilion, people then patronize the pavilion and then go to the bars.
I guess it's all spinning around,
yeah. I mean, isn't that what the thinking is?
I think back to when the city had to bail out the Omni, which was the Radisson at the time. I think that to me that was the beginning of the success of the downtown mall. When the city stepped in, and people screamed when that happened. When the city stepped in and got involved in that. But I also remember a guy named Lee Danielson.
Sure.
Who did
the Charlottesville Ice Park.
Who did the Ice Park. And the movie theater.
Yeah.
So
Halsey Minor's partner at one time behind the now Skeleton Landmark Hotel.
So Lee sat on my. I had a radio show a long time ago. We talked about that. Lee sat on my radio show one time, and we were talking about that. He said, Ray, they're making me crazy. He said, I have had to show them 6 different sketches of the light fixtures for the outside.
And who specifically?
The ARB, the Planning Commission, and the not the Board of Supervisors, the City Council. He said, I can't make them happy. He said, they keep talking about Thomas Jefferson. So he finally did it and did what he had to do, and It was successful, and a huge part of the success of the downtown mall also.
Absolutely.
And then, at the other end of the mall, Thomas Jefferson does not have much to do with the look of the pavilion. So
yeah, the pavilion's ugly. It's the tent. It's ugly. It's an eyesore. But it's functional.
I wouldn't go even that far. I just wonder how. I didn't see so much the leveling of the playing field there. You know, I saw when that thing started going up, I'm like, what about them messing with Lee Danielson about light fixtures and all that stuff? But meanwhile, here's one thing nobody can argue about. Corn Cap Show is one smart son of a gun.
Oh my gosh.
And not just, you know, people don't even know till you start digging about some of the development things and things like that. The Corn Cap Show has changed the face of this town and this county. There's no question about it, and for the better, no doubt about it.
I mean, when Corn Capshaw and Alan Taylor and Riverbend Development came to the south side of Charlottesville and built 5th Street Station, Redfields, Mosby Mountain, Mill Creek, Lake Renovia, Foxcroft, all our property values went up like 10%.
Absolutely.
Because before we were shopping at the Food Line on 5th Street, which we dubbed the Shitty Kitty, because literally it had an armed guard there
or the
from
hood,
8 p.m.
Or the Hood Lion.
Right.
A lot of people
I
call
mean,
it,
it was it's shady. Now it's safe, and property values are going up, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I was surprised to see that not happen on the north side of Charlottesville. And I think it's because where I live, I guess. But
where would it happen? It seems like there's no place for it to happen.
Well, you know,
Unless you revitalize Almar
we
Square.
keep going back to Almar Square.
Listen, and here's a good topic here. And guys, if you're following the news, man, we have a lot of people on the mix here. Constance Wyatt, thank you for joining us. She says, great point, Ray Caddell. If you have any questions, hey, Jerry, love the live show. CVille ain't CVille without Big Ray and the Kool Kats. That's from Jason Kregler, a friend of Ray Caddell. Jump on the live stream, ask us a question. We have a guy who's been in Charlottesville since '87, who is an entrepreneur, visionary, and has a lot of connections. We've been talking about Almar Square. He is a big-time proponent of Charlottesville.
Sure.
Huge proponent of Albemarle County.
Yeah, can we stop for 1 second?
Yeah.
Because because of your logo and the name of your company and everything else,
Yeah.
you don't just love Charlottesville.
I love Central Virginia.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I love Central Virginia in my ways is Charlottesville. Okay? Central Virginia relies on Charlottesville to be successful. If Charlottesville's strong and is getting national attention, Albemarle County will do well, Louisa County will do, Orange County do well, Greene County do well. He's a big fan of Albemarle County. He lives in Albemarle County in Carrsboro. You were shocked when the Board of Supervisors and Malik comes on Court Square over here without anybody freaking knowing, does a press conference. This really, I'm shocked that this has flown under the radar. It says, guys, Mayor Walker's behind her, Mike Signer's behind her, Wes Bellamy's behind her. He's like, the courts are staying downtown. We'll start open dead end first. What did you think of how this was handled?
I think it's too big a decision to not have seen a lot more light of day than it did.
Right.
There were definitely conversations about it. What about this? And what about Albemarle Square maybe? What about this? What about that? There were even conversations about maybe this affecting the Albemarle County payment to Charlottesville, the reversion thing.
It's like $15.6 million.
Yeah, and it's going to cost $30 million to build this.
Yeah, to build a new structure.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure what building it is.
The levee.
So which one is that? So if you're at the corner of, it's right at the corner, right?
Yeah.
Of Park Street and High Street.
Yeah.
So the existing courthouse is on one corner. Is it the one?
I think it's
to
the one
right?
right next door. Yeah.
Well, there's some parking issues, that's for sure. But
Well,
they're
and
going to
part of
handle
the
that
plan
with a
is
garage.
parking deck. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have to count on the city to hold up their part of the plan in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Here's
Randolph, the Board of Supervisors, made that point, and he does not believe.
He's Scottsville, right?
Yeah,
Okay, right.
yeah. Randolph said the city council in Charlottesville City has proven over time that they're not going to live up to their word.
I mean, that might be a little strong, but
Yeah.
we've certainly proven over time that they're a little bit dysfunctional in terms of getting projects
Execution.
done. Yeah. And we do have the
Of course.
Dewberry
Landmark
to talk
Hotel.
about, yeah.
Signer's entire platform for running for council was this hotel,
Yeah.
and nothing has happened.
Yeah, if I were a downtown business person, every day I'd be screaming about that.
That's what
Every
I'm
day.
trying to do.
Every day.
Yeah.
You know, that the
I mean, can you imagine if you're Jack Brown's, the little
Sure.
burger joint on the side street? I mean, how is what the city doing?
nice scenery.
Right. I mean, it's so unfair to Jack Brown's. Now, Jack Brown's rented the place, and they saw it was across the street.
Sure. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, that's a big issue, and
Should the courts be downtown, or should they be in Albemarle County?
Yeah, or should they be separate? I mean,
What do you think?
If you're going to say, well, they all need to be together, maybe I'm okay with that. How about the schools? Maybe the school systems should all be together.
Okay, so you're basically saying if the logic is Charlottesville City and Albemarle Court should be in one building, why shouldn't we all go to the same public school together?
Sure, because Virginia is one of the very few states where you have this nuttiness, where you have a city that's geographically separate from a county that surrounds it.
That's engulfing it.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, that's really not even
weird.
legal in a lot of places.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some economy of scale. I mean, the schools are a perfect example. And listen, I'm following this thing in the Charlottesville City Schools about the achievement gap and things like that. And yeah, of course there is an achievement gap, because just look at the demographics. In the real estate business, we call it a barbell school.
Right.
We've got this big weight at one end of advanced placement courses, and Laura Thomas's worldwide award-winning Charlottesville String Orchestra, and things like that. And at the other end of the barbell, you have kids that really, really, really need our help.
Sure.
And aren't getting it and maybe they're not getting it at home.
Right.
And then in the middle, you have this sort of long thing of kids that are just maybe sort of lost by the wayside.
Well, I think, and you're referencing the New York Times article that spotlighted Charlottesville City Schools and the gap in AP and advanced courses specifically, where there was an astronomical amount of white students and a very little amount of black students in these advanced classes. And people were basically saying, are you basically telling me that this large percentage of white students are considered advanced, when this small percentage of African-American students are considered not advanced?
Sure, and let's call it what it is. It's about money. It's about economic demographics.
Resources.
That's what I call it, yeah.
Yeah, and resources come from money.
It's about two-parent households versus one-parent household.
Tutors after school.
That's right. It's about a...
having access to the internet and a computer.
In the home, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And, all those things are money-driven. So if the... I didn't even know we were going to go here, but it was because I hadn't thought it through. So if the Charlottesville school system gets dropped into the Albemarle school system, we'll call it the Charlottesville Albemarle school system. I don't care about the name. Well, maybe that's not such a bad thing.
Interesting.
Maybe
keep walking through me this. This is the entrepreneur side of you talking.
Maybe that'll level some demographics out.
Interesting.
It's got to save all kinds of money in buildings and things like that.
Personnel.
It's going to save, and I think this is where the rubber meets the road a little bit. It's going to say, it's not that we're going to need less teachers. We'll probably need the same amount of teachers, but I bet we need less administrators.
Of course.
So, and that's where the big salaries are.
That's where the big salaries are.
So
less school buses.
It's interesting here, and the whole city-county thing is so different. I talk to real estate clients about it all the time. They'll say, why are the real estate taxes so much higher in the city? I said, let's start with this. See this road we're standing on in Albemarle County? When it snows or when it gets a pothole, the Commonwealth of Virginia comes and fixes it. That doesn't happen in the city of Charlottesville. The city of Charlottesville owns that street out there. It has to plow it. It has to maintain it. It has to clean it. It has to fill the potholes. God knows what that costs. So maybe let's go further than just the schools. Maybe
the police force.
How about everything? Just everything. How about everything? Let's just be one big kind of sort of happy family, and just draw a big ring around it, and let's figure it out.
For me, that's an interesting idea, and I think it's an idea I have not heard before. For me, having the courts downtown.
That's why you asked me to come here when I did it. You hadn't heard before.
I knew when I would have you here that I would have an entrepreneur with vision that have different ideas. You and I are similar in mindset. I think we're physically conservative, potentially socially liberal on some concepts, and we're driven by, what's best for the economy in our home. Because and I don't want to assume, I know that when our middle class and when our economy is strong and when our real estate values go north, then we feel confident with spending our money in the community.
It's good for everybody.
That's
for sure.
Everybody. City council, I have respect for city council. I have respect for the folks that are busting their tail on there, that are working 50 hours a week for $18,000 and $20,000. Very little money. But sometimes I feel like social justice is prioritized over economic stimulus and economic growth.
Well, it is with this council, I think. I think there's no question about it.
It's concerning.
Yeah. Let's talk. It's funny you're talking about, not funny. Let's talk about housing for a second in this city. So, excuse me. So there's a thing called the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Most people call it Section 8.
Sure.
This is a voucher that the United States government gives to a person and says, we'd like to help you find safe, quality housing. Here's some money to do that with. There are thousands of people, thousands, on the waiting list to get one of those vouchers for our area. Thousands. There are, nobody knows quite how many people, although they call me every single day, people that are holding a voucher, that have it, that have the golden ticket from Willy Wonka and can't find a landlord that'll take it. So it seems to me that'd be a pretty easy place for us to start tackling this affordable housing issue.
Why won't the landlords take it?
Well, let's talk about that because that's the problem.
Is the landlords won't take the voucher because of long-term concern of quality of caring for the home?
Well, let's talk about it. There's a couple reasons they won't take a voucher. I believe that I can demonstrate that the amount that some guy in Washington says is allowable for rent and utilities for a property here in Charlottesville is too low. That's the first person.
So you're saying the voucher does not translate to market value rent?
That's right. The landlord can go out on the open market and get more value.
Okay.
Now, what the landlord gets with the Section 8 program is between the 1st and the 5th of the month, the rent shows up in his account.
It's a guaranteed rent payment.
That's pretty strong.
That is strong.
That's pretty strong.
Of course.
Here's and you'll see ads in the paper that say no Section 8. Say it right there. And I get people all the time say, that's discrimination. I'm like, the discrimination statutes are pretty clear. Not pretty clear. They're blindingly clear about
black
what.
and white.
Yeah, and that's not one of the protected classes. I say, but here. So why don't they want it? Why don't they want that guaranteed rent? So it's not quite enough money. Let's start with that. Another thing, and I've been to talk to many administrations over the years here at the city about this. They don't. I think there should be mandatory training. I think they should say when somebody gets a voucher, they should have to go to a class. And in that class, when they graduate, one of the things that we're going to give them is a toilet plunger. Because you know what? Use it. Don't call the landlord. We're going to give them a package of light bulbs. I get calls all the day. People say, hey, I got a light bulb out where I live, where you manage the property. I said, there's one out of my house, too. Let's try to find the same guy to change them.
I get those calls, too.
And it's
so
not,
frustrating.
it's not, and it's not, we're not educating them well. But here's to me, here's the number one problem. So I rent a property to somebody with a Section 8 voucher. We're big on single moms with jobs. Statistically, they're the ones we have the greatest success with this program. So the kid throws his truck against the wall, and it knocks a hole in the drywall. So when they move in, it's inspected. There are probably things in your home and my home that won't pass an inspection. I mean, it's really, really, really strict. Got to be even cosmetically perfect. They move in, okay. If you're going to get involved in the program, you know that after a year, the tenant, you've got all your rent. Maybe it pays all the rent. Maybe they pays part of the rent, but everything's fine. The tenant wants to stay. God, they want to stay because if they lose their voucher, they're in that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of line of people trying to find somebody who'll take them.
Right.
They want to stay. I want them to stay because it's worked out pretty well, and it gets inspected again. And the inspector comes out, and he said, there's a hole in the drywall, Ray. And the tenant says, I'm really sorry my kid threw a truck against the wall. And the inspector says, Ray, you have to fix that. And I'm like, really? Oh, gosh, yeah. I said, that's not health, safety, welfare. I'm okay with it. It's not like you told me she has no hot water. And
you have to fix that immediately?
By the time if you want to keep getting money. Get out of town. Yeah. So, and then I say, that's ridiculous. Do you think I snuck in the middle of the night and knocked a hole in the wall? Right. And you know what they always say to me? Well, you can bill the tenant for that. And I always say the same thing. If they had any frickin' money, they wouldn't be in this program to begin with. I said it's just ridiculous.
What is the affordable housing issue at a climax? We were talking about this off air here.
It's pretty bad.
We had Rob Schilling on the air yesterday. Mm-hmm. He says we have an affordable housing issue in Charlottesville. Hey, build more housing. If there's not enough supply, increase the supply. If we increase the supply, that's going to create more inventory, more options. The problem is, if we increase the supply, it could have a negative impact on price points for homes. Because I think one of the reasons the city of Charlottesville home values are going so high, supply is so low.
There's no dirt. Yeah.
And demand is so high. So right now it's still a seller's market.
I got a better idea.
Okay.
Let's take that $500,000 that the new fund is. I forget what it's called.
$500,000 was allocated from City Council to the New Hill Development nonprofit that's focusing on revitalization of Star Hill neighborhood.
Okay, and then and the city has already pledged $1.5 million for affordable housing. Let's say that's $2 million.
And then we got $5 million from Dave
and
Matthews.
Dave Matthews stepped up.
Yeah.
You know,
$6.5 million, $7 million there.
Yeah. Okay. So now we got $7 million. Okay. What are we going to do with it? Well, let's see. Let's build some stuff to try to solve this problem.
Okay.
So here's the first problem.
Where do you build it?
Where are you going to build it?
Exactly.
Dirt. Price of dirt. Here's an even bigger problem. Time. We can't. I mean, you know. So maybe 3 years from now, or we're going to have people ready to move somewhere. I got a better idea. Let's take a hunk of that money, and let's take a small hunk. Let's do an experimental program. And let's say, hey, landlords that are not taking Section 8 currently, or that are, and you're concerned about that you're not getting enough, you're not getting fair market rent, come to a meeting. We want to talk to you. Okay, Jerry, you're short $150 a month on some rental property that you have. We agree with you, and we're going to give it to you. So it's $150 a month times 12 months. So that's $1,800 a year. Is that right? Okay, we're going to give it to you. You'll get it every month, just like you get your Section 8 payment. So now, I have a guy that wants to take Section 8 that will take some of these people that will help bringing this in. Now, that might encourage you to go out and buy some boarded up houses that are out there now and fix them up, or take some more Section 8 things. Well, you know, if you divide $1,800 into $6 million, we could solve a lot of problems.
There's a lot of it. Yeah, there's a lot there. Well, I mean, let me throw this to you. You look at the city of Charlottesville, and it seems to me one of the issues we have is we have a very confined area, very tight, and a lot of people want to live here. Mm-hmm. And as millennials and as baby boomers are choosing to move closer to urban areas.
Well, we were talking earlier about the million and million and a half brownstones.
We were talking about, guys, the brownstones in between Beer Run and downtown on Water Street.
The coal tower.
Yeah, that are selling for $1.2 million, Corns Development. And we were shocked that these homes, these townhomes, were selling for this price point. Where I'm going with this is...
And they're selling.
Oh.
It's not pie in the sky. They're selling.
Yeah. People, I mean, I don't think... Are they Charlottesvillians that are buying them?
I have no idea.
Are they New Yorkers?
They're not people that I hang out with, whoever they are.
I mean, $1.2 million for a townhome. Here's where I'm going. People want to live downtown. Baby boomers and millennials. We don't have enough inventory. Mm-hmm. Oliver Kootner proposed the idea of 600 square foot studio apartments.
Yep, I liked it a lot.
I love that idea. Why did that not come to fruition?
Oliver's always been a little ahead of his time.
Sure.
I mean, there isn't any question about it.
He's a visionary.
Yeah, but talk about guys like Oliver and Lee Danielson and help me, I know him really well.
Ludwig Kootner?
Not
Alan Kajin?
No, the latest fiasco that the city that the guy backed off his project.
Oh, you're talking Keith Woodard. On Water Street. $80 million. Yeah. Dude had $1.2 million of his own money.
His own money, yep. Gee. Yeah, so do we really want somebody to come here, or are we prepared for that, or we just want to keep it like it is? And, you know, this goes back to that whole arbitrary line around the city of Charlottesville between. Let's just erase that. And let's figure it all out. Now we have some more dirt in Elmore County. We'll call the whole thing Albemarle, call it whatever you want. I don't see how in the city of Charlottesville the affordable housing problem, forget about solved. I don't see anybody making a serious dent into it because there's just no dirt. There's just no way to do it. And if we're going to say to builders, we're going to give you a special use permit for your property. We're going to rezone it so you can have more properties on it that are supposed to be, and you have to build some portion of those as affordable housing, whatever the definition of it is. Well, we better hold them to it. Somebody better be out there investigating that after they're built, make sure it's being done, and make sure it's being handled right, and make sure that they're not just keeping it, using it for a little art studio in the back of their house.
I understand that. If is Corin doing this revitalization of Crescent Halls and other subsidized housing to get good equity and goodwill for future projects? I mean, why? I understand that he's a good Samaritan. I understand he wants what's best for the community. He's got a lot of skin in the game in Charlottesville. His office is across the street from Crescent Hall.
Sure.
He looks at it every day. Is he doing this work for a genuine reason, or is it to build? It's a leverage point for him.
I barely know Corin Capshaw. Here's what I know about Corin Capshaw. He has more money than he could ever possibly spend. So if he's out there doing these projects, it can only be for one of two reasons or a combination of them. One of them, like everybody in the world, is ego. And the other is because he genuinely wants to do some good stuff here. And I really think that's it. And Lord knows Crescent Hall. I mean, we've had problems. We've had sewer problems there and air conditioning problems there. And those are our seniors. Those are people we need to take care of. They can't help themselves, those people.
Do you see the mall being one pedestrian quarter to Ix Art Park?
Well, I follow you about that very issue, and I never thought about it till I started following you about it. But it just makes so much sense as long as whatever happens at Ix makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Don't you see Ix being used in a very different way than Ix is now?
Yeah.
I mean, I love Ludwig and Allen.
I like your farmers market idea. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think from a parking perspective, from just a sheer
quality of life.
Yeah, and I think it makes more sense than Keith Woodard's project, too, for the farmers market. I think Keith Woodard's project was just a prettier version of what we have now. It's still a lot of asphalt involved.
Yeah. Keith Woodard's project didn't take it to another level. It just kind of put a Band-Aid on the current situation.
It was prettier.
Yeah, it was prettier. We talked off air about...
But by the way, Keith Woodard, and I know him fairly well, that's another guy that stepped up, like the Lee Danielsons, that stepped up with his own money and said, hey, I'm here. This is what I want to do. I mean, it's not like, somebody gave him a bunch of money or it was all city money or something like that. So,
what's Keith Woodard like?
I
don't know him.
I know Keith Woodard from the craziest... And here's how my worlds intersect.
Okay.
Keith Woodard is a very fine ballroom dancer.
Get out of town.
He really is.
Really?
He and his wife.
What do you mean by like Terry Dean?
His now wife.
Ballroom dancing?
Yeah.
Is it Terry Dean?
Oh yeah. If I see Keith Woodard in the audience, we just did we do the film festival gala every year.
Okay.
If I see Keith Woodard out there, I'll turn around to my band and I'll say Moon River, and they'll say, really, because we just did the Bruno Mars medley. I said, I know what we just did. And we'll play a waltz, and because Keith Woodard his wife can really waltz. So I know him from a completely non-real estate perspective, and I didn't see the city welcoming him with open arms.
Should the city welcome him with open arms?
Yeah. The city
because
should,
of the magnitude of he is as a developer.
Now, welcoming him with open arms and rolling over dead for him or any other developer, absolutely, absolutely. And when he said, "Listen, I want to do this, and the economics of this have changed a little bit, and I need 2 more stories or
more floors,
whatever
to make
he was
more
asking
money
for."
Yeah. Woodard needed more margin, and when he got approved the plans, and when he wanted to start, the cost of construction increased dramatically. The cost of goods.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the city council, or whoever makes that decision, has to look at that and first verify that that's true, which it certainly is, and then say, this makes sense for the city of Charlottesville.
One of the things we've been following closely here is the proliferation of new construction in the city of Charlottesville. You are a man that is well connected in real estate circles. I am not as well connected as you. I see so much shiny bling bling. This is so sexy in the eyes. It's romanticizing and seducing buyers to spend $1.2 million on a brownstone between Beer Run and Water Street. It's romanticizing and encouraging buyers to drop $1.4 million in Whittington. Mm-hmm. And I understand new construction offers less headaches, but eventually that new construction becomes old construction.
Sure.
And then you realize that you've bought new construction in a neighborhood that has no clubhouse, no walking trails, no amenities, no swimming pool, and you drop $1.4 million to do it.
So with the exception of Frank Bailiff's company, Southern Development.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, with the exception of him, who's a local guy who lives here, and you just don't get much more
local
than him.
He got his start from Dr. Hurt.
Dr. Hurt, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With the exception of him, when the Stanley Martins and the Ryan Homes and all those regional. We talked about this earlier. Even you thought that Stanley Martin was a local company. Yes, they came in and bought a local company.
Please explain this.
They're owned by the Japanese.
Stanley Martin.
And they've been huge in Greater D.C. for years and years and years.
Guys, Stanley Martin, who I thought was a local company, I feel like I'm a bit more sophisticated than the average Joe when it comes to real estate in Charlottesville. Not as sophisticated as him. Stanley Martin, I thought
you're just not as old as me.
I thought the entire time Stanley Martin was some dude that lived in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh, no.
So think about that, guys. Stanley Martin is essentially playing the branding game better than the Ryan Holmes plays the branding and marketing game. Stanley Martin has branded and marketed themselves as local because they bought a local company. Stanley Martin, you were saying, is owned by the Japanese.
Yep. And they don't even use local real estate agents. Stanley Martin has their own site people. Sure. Something happened here maybe 10 years ago that we'd never seen before. These regional builders came in, Ryan and Stanley and people like that, and they said, okay, we have our own people, and we don't really want to hire you, Jerry, to be our real estate agent, but we sure would like access to that MLS system you have there at the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors. So companies like that pay a small amount of money, sometimes as low as $100, to get their house listed in our MLS under one of our agents, companies, whatever, and then that's the end of the responsibility for that real estate company. The people on site. I sold a Stanley Martin home last week, and I know exactly what happens. You know, it happened to be listed by Nest Real Estate. Fine, upstanding company. Kind of an interesting. They're really interesting story, really, how they...
Jonathan Kaufman had some beef with Rick Spagoni at Real Estate 3 in Crozet at Old Trail.
Yeah. But
that beef translated to Jonathan Kaufman launching Nest Realty, and they're kicking ass.
It's funny how beefs, Frank Kessler had a beef with Farmington. That's why Glenmore exists. So it's funny.
Frank Kessler wanted Glenmore to be the Farmington of that side of town.
So it's funny how all those things happen. But so I went to Belvedere, which is where the villas at Belvedere.
Stanley Martin.
Where I saw Stanley Martin. And she was very charming and younger than 3 of my 4 children.
Right, they're early 20s. First job talking.
And knows one thing and knew it very well.
The floor plan.
Yep. I had not a single problem with her. I mean, she knows all about DocuSign and Dropbox and all that kind of stuff. It went very, very smoothly. But the property was listed with Nest Real Estate. So I know what I made. And real estate commissions are absolutely negotiable. We don't want to get in any kind of restraint of trade thing or anything like that. They can pay me whatever they want to pay me as long as they put it up front, which they did. And they can pay their site agent whatever they want to pay her. And they can pay, in this case, Nest, whatever they and Nest agree to. We never saw that here. If you were...
What, like 10 years ago? 5 years ago?
No,
3 years ago?
maybe 10. Maybe 10, when
the MLS is being pimped out by outside construction companies?
I believe that. I've been on the board there many times, and I fought it many times, and I kept losing.
Why would the MLS,
9-2.
And I'm not as smart as you, why would the Charlottesville Albemarle Association of Realtors allow this?
Sure, because here's the deal. They are paying, first of all, they will pay me. They will pay the guy with the buyer. Mm-hmm. They will pay me something, might be probably not 3% anymore, which was...
So they're negotiating your commission on this.
Yeah,
You're not getting the full commission.
But up front, well, no, let's not use it full commission thing, because now we're getting into restraint of trade and things like that. Yeah, I know what I'm getting paid ahead of time.
Okay,
that's for sure.
So you have no beef because you
Nope, no, I have no beef, no beef on my end at all. It concerns me that a real estate agent, and let's not just pick on Nest because it's happening throughout the community, will sell access to our MLS for a fee, small that it might be, rather than having the Stanley Martin Company coming in or Ryan or somebody coming in and hire an ABC real estate company to represent them in their co-brokerage operations with guys like me, just like it's always been. And you know what? I'm old. I'm 64. So change is hard for me.
Sure.
But I just
let me
don't
play
like
devil's
it.
advocate with
Sure.
you. The MLS, which I'm on the MLS 3 or 4 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
The MLS is like the library card catalog. The MLS very slowly is going to be an archaic dinosaur. And why I'm going with this, with what I'm doing here, with what I have here, I can find 90% of the information I can find on here that I can find on the MLS.
Yeah, but the reason you can do that is because we are feeding those other sites that you're looking at.
When the MLS in real estate agents, I enjoy this. I think real estate agents started losing control when they started syndicating the listings
No question about
to
it.
Zillow, Realtor.com, and Trulia. And then at that point, it marginalized the real estate agent.
And there is a company now, big company, with big money, that is trying to take it one step further.
Which one's that?
I wish I could think of the name of it right now, and I should know because my brand new daughter-in-law went to work for them in Charlotte.
Okay.
So
how can they take it further than it is
I'm
now?
going to send you
with like a digital assistant.
I'm going to send you a link that talks about everybody's trying to get to the buyer first.
Sure.
And then sell the buyer to me, and take
a percentage.
A big percentage, 35, 40%.
Really?
Yeah, big.
Just for
big
giving
numbers.
you the buyer?
Yep. Yeah. You mentioned Zillow.
Yeah.
So here's Zillow's deal. So Zillow. So we give or sell in some cases our data to Zillow.
You're paying to be on there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No. I'm talking about the association sends it to Zillow. Zillow doesn't charge me anything unless I want to be a Zillow super duper agent. Right. Then you could pay. Depends on zip code. Depends on some agents are paying $4,000 a month.
I'm managing an account right now. I'm not going to say who it is. They're paying $3,000 a month.
Yep. That doesn't surprise, and it's working for them.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Killing it.
Yeah,
killing it.
But without the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors giving them that data, they have nothing to sell.
Right.
So let's think about this a minute. So we're giving them that data or selling it to them for pennies on the dollar.
You're marginalizing your information.
Our own information.
The most valuable thing you have.
And they're turning around and selling leads back to us.
Because they're better at the tech piece than you guys.
That's exactly right.
Why was this allowed in the first place?
And by the way, I don't think they're necessarily better at the tech piece. I think we have a pretty robust mycar.com.
I think they just have much more money to pivot their technology and involve and improve
There's no question about it. But our data is more timely.
Yeah. Well, your data is the data. You originate the data, and they're just syndicating it.
Yeah, and here's what bothers me the most about Zillow: the Zestimate. The Zestimate.
How many times do you hear from your buyer, your seller, but my Zestimate is?
All
the time?
Or my assessment at the county. I said, listen to me. Let me tell you about Zestimates and assessments. Here's what I know about them. They're wrong. I said, they might be high, they might be low. They're wrong. That's
They're a conversation starter.
Here's why they're wrong, because those people never went in the front door of the house like I didn't, like you and I are getting ready to do right now. So yeah, it's a different world. There's no question about it. I'm not sad that I'm in the last whatever of my real estate career. It doesn't. It's a much more difficult business than it used to be.
Oh, of course.
Part of that is because of technology. Part of that is, I have buyers that have, I might be working with, 5 or 6 sellers and 5 or 6 buyers at the same time. Well, each of those people, they're only worried about their little deal. So I'll get texts and emails at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning from people saying, what about this house? What about this house? What about this house? It's hard.
Sure.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Is it better for the consumer? It might be.
Well, I think it's better for the consumer because it empowers us with knowledge. So we're coming into the conversation with IQ, knowledge, a foundation to start. So I think today's buyers and sellers perhaps a little bit more sophisticated than the buyers and sellers of 30 years ago.
Oh, much more sophisticated. I mean, there's no question about that. And that's always a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good thing. And it's up to the broker and the agent now to evolve their approach to accommodate today's sophistication.
You better have some value added. You better be able to stand up and say, in my case, you better be able to stand up and say, yeah, I got like 36 years now.
I think your value add piece is a lot. I mean, you're a tremendous negotiator. You have a Rolodex of the who's who of Charlottesville.
Sadly, I still have a Rolodex.
Yeah, you know what's the hot spots. What's a hot spot in Charlottesville or Albemarle County? And we got, before you answer that question, Jason Krigler asking questions to you. Ray, peering into your crystal ball, do you think the real estate market for the coming year is strong?
For the coming year, I sure do.
2019?
I sure do. I think 2019 is fine.
Okay.
I'm concerned a little bit about what the perception of interest rates might do to the market.
Well, the Fed is raising rates.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you have to understand something. You're talking to a guy who bought his first house.
What, at 18%?
For $53,200. It was 19%. 19%. Yeah.
The only reason that
and wait a minute, I had to put 20% down.
But the only reason that was able to work was because of the starting price point.
Of course.
The 50 Gs.
Of course.
Yeah.
But so to me, when people, when it went to 10%, I was like,
you were saying hallelujah.
Really? Plus, it's easy to do the math. now on the payments, and it's surely never go any lower than this. And now you could still, if you have reasonable credit, I just did a deal the deal I was talking about.
I just did a deal 4 1/8.
4.5%.
Yeah.
Nothing to it.
Right.
I feel, Jason, I feel good about the market for 2019. I have some concerns about what interest rates might do and how that might affect the perception of the market. Now, they shouldn't affect the market because the difference between 4 and 5 and even 6%, well, that's a lot different from 19% or 10%.
I still think, and Lee Hughes from CBRE on the broadcast.
Commercial guy.
Yeah, commercial guy. We love Lee Hughes. Lee, thanks for joining us here. Eric Johnston and Luke Garrett, thank you for joining us on the broadcast as well. Same with Sam King and Tyler Berry. Ask us a question if you'd like. I still think, and we're talking real estate here in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, I still think that 5-6%, that's cheap money.
Absolutely.
Like, why do we get so, why is the misconception, or why do we get so tricked by, oh my God, it went from 4 1/8 to 5 1/8. It's cheap money.
Particularly when you...
it's a fixed 30.
Particularly
it's so cheap.
When you can sit with a customer or a client and talk to and show them the difference that 1% might make, and then I call the Ben Franklin close. I just put everything on one side of the paper and then everything on the other side of the paper. I said, well, look at this. Well, here's your rent. Let's talk about what tax advantages you have paying rent. Oh, none. Let's talk about the payment. Well, you're making a payment. And they'll say, oh, no, I'm paying rent. I said, I didn't say you were making your payment. You're making your landlord's payment. Right. You're making a payment. There's no,
paying someone else's mortgage.
Yeah, so it's still, listen, for 100 years and hopefully for 100 more, the biggest piece of most people's net worth when it comes to the end is their real estate.
And that's why I think, and I keep saying this here, I think that Charlottesville, everyone's screaming, my tax assessment's through the roof. I'm paying too many taxes here. And I am an entrepreneur and a business owner. My ideology is very much in that libertarian space, where I'm physically conservative, socially liberal. I do not want the government in my business. I want to protect my dollars. I don't want to pay that. Where I'm going with this is, as someone who is planning 70 more years in Charlottesville, who hopes to pass his business to his children, I don't mind that the tax assessments are going up, because the tax assessments going up is an indication of a strong economy.
Sure, and not only that, we're in this little bubble where our taxes are going up a little. Come to my office one day when I'm meeting with buyers that are going to retire here from Long Island. They laugh at our taxes. They're like, really? What about? And they always say the same thing.
My wife's family's from Long Island.
What about the fire department tax? I'm saying it's included. What about the school tax? They always say, what about the school tax? Nope, that's included. They're like, really? These taxes are like nothing. And when you think about it, compared to a lot of places, I don't really have
It's all relative.
Absolutely.
Like, people that complain about the traffic, go to Washington, D.C.
I'm in Washington at least 3 or 4 times a month with my band.
Miserable.
I'm always calling my wife saying, we can never live here.
Right.
We can never live here.
I mean, it's just like, it's disgusting. And you talked about, we touched, guys, on the proliferation of new construction in Charlottesville. I think what's happening here is people are getting seduced by the new shiny thing and not buying homes that, I'm going to throw the Glenmore market to you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Jeff Gaffney, Marina Ringstrom, Janice Kavanaugh, these folks specialize in Glenmore.
Tommy Pace, Patty Rowe.
Tom Pace,
right.
These folks.
Right.
Glenmore specialists, okay?
Sure.
And I'm on the MLS. It's almost an addiction. I'm looking at the DOMs. The DOM, guys, days on the market.
We like that you're addicted to our MLS. We like that.
I am on it probably an hour to 90 minutes a day. The DOMs in the Glenmore neighborhood are, Ray, I'm talking 200 and 300 days.
Yeah, there are some tremendous buying opportunities in Glenmore right now. There's no question about it.
The Stanley Martin home that was right there when you walk in the gate on the main drag. I think it's Piper Way. I went and toured it with my wife. The guy's basically saying to us, make us an offer.
That's right. That's right.
Make us an offer. So where I'm going with this is, if I'm, someone who's looking to buy my home, I allow this new construction phase to get people buying these, which means these homes in Glenmore are undervalued. And then these homes in Glenmore are undervalued. Once the new construction becomes old construction, people then realize, holy shit, this neighborhood has no amenities, no clubhouse, no walking trails, no swimming pool, but this neighborhood does. So I think what's going to happen is neighborhoods like that will have a second new life to it. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Actually, I like that. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that once the shine is off the penny, people will start looking a little deeper, and yeah.
Let me throw this to you. With the Whittington neighborhood, and I'm not knocking anything. Whittington, guys, is down 5th Street Extended. You're talking about half-acre homes on new construction by Stanley Martin that are selling anywhere from $800,000 to $1.2 million, and these homes, guys, are selling all day, every day, no problem. They have very few lots left. I think the model home and a handful of other lots left for sale. This neighborhood has got a prime location, but once the new construction goes away, what are the amenities offered in that
Right.
neighborhood?
You know, it's funny. 10 years ago, we would call that a prime location. We were calling it the Boondocks.
When I bought my first place, and I still own it, was the Villas at Southern Ridge.
Sure.
Real Estate 3 had 5 phases of built-in equity. Phase 1, I got this great condo from Jeff Gaffney, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and a den, at $180, and there's 5 phases of built-in equity at $10,000 increase per phase. I'm gonna get rich. Market fell out. Villas at Southern Ridge used to be a very shady apartment complex.
It did indeed.
I walked out of my condo one time, my first home, and I saw 5 guys drinking 40s, smoking pot right in front of my place.
Yeah, and that was that whole condo
It was a conversion.
conversion thing
Yeah.
that was going on, which was we'd never seen anything like that here either. So it's listen. We have growing pains here, and we need the whole area, and we need to find a better way to manage them. And a lot of people talk. I travel all the time with the band, all the time. And for 1,000 years, people have said, in 1,000 years, for every show, people say, "Where are you from?" And I always say in the show, "We're from Charlottesville, Virginia." So for many, 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 many years, people say, "Oh, I heard it's so beautiful there. Oh, the university. Oh, that." You know what they want to talk about now? You know what they say now? "Oh, I'm so sorry," because of 812.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to find a way to, first of all, make sure that never happens again. And second of all, work hard to overcome what people think about Charlottesville today.
How do you do that?
Well,
Easier said than done.
Sure, there's no question about it. It takes hard work. It takes a lot of people getting together. It takes some money from the city and the county. And the county can't wash their hands of this and say, "Oh, we don't have anything to do with that." It's absolutely impacting the county.
Do you remove the statues? Ray Caddell, do you statue stay or move?
I do not. But let me tell you why I do not. Because I don't think the African American citizens in this town, for the most part, give a crap about those statues.
And what are you basing that on?
I base that on, I'm a musician. I've been a musician so long that when I first joined the Musicians Union in Wilmington, Delaware, it had 2 separate numbers because it had the white musicians and the black musicians. I've been doing this a long, long time. I've been hanging out with black men and women for a long, long time. My band the Big Rain of Kool Kats is incredibly diverse now. We've got Filipinos and black people and white people and old people and young people.
It's music. That's
Puerto
what makes
Rican.
music great.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
and that's why I feel qualified to talk to this issue. And I asked my friends, what about this statue thing? What are we going to do about this statue thing? Because here's the deal. I mean, anybody knows me. There's a long, long, long way between financially and a little bit socially conservative and alt-right. I mean, they're not on the same planet.
Of course.
And I don't want to be painted with that brush. But I talk to my black friends, and they say the same. Ray, we want the same thing you do for our families. We want better jobs. We want better schools. We want everybody to be safe. We want everything to be beautiful. We want all the same stuff. The statues, they're a symbol of something that happened a long, long time ago. And I even go so far, not so much anymore, because sadly, like 9/11 and everything else, time has passed a little bit. Not a big deal anymore to people.
Devil's advocate.
Let me say one more thing.
Sure.
So here's the mistake we made, I believe,
Okay.
on August 11th and mostly on August 11th and August 12th, that we can't ever allow to happen again.
Okay.
When this busloads of scum came to our town, and we knew they were coming to our town, and we saw them coming to our town, and we didn't quite know how many of them there were till they got to our town, and then they marched on our University of Virginia with lit torches. The University of Virginia, and I don't know anything else to do but kick it all the way upstairs to Miss Sullivan at that time.
Tracy Sullivan.
Sure, she's supposed to pick up the phone and call the governor and say, "Hey, we can't handle this. It's way beyond my pay grade. I know you got those National Guard guys around or whatever's going on. You got to send them in there. We can't have this happen." And that didn't happen. And then during the night and the next day, when the mayor, who was Mr. Signer at the time, was still on the Board of Supervisors.
City Council.
City Council, yeah. I'm an Albemarle guy.
Sure.
He should have said the same thing. You know, it's 6 in the morning, and the police chief too. They got to say, whoa, this is way, way, way bigger than we thought it was going to be.
Why didn't it happen?
No, I don't know. That, to me, that's the biggest question of all. That's the biggest question. And did we have to ask for it? Couldn't the governor have said, hey,
I'm taking charge here.
yeah, you know those two state troopers that were killed in the helicopter crash. My band actually did a benefit for the wives of those. Well, they were up and they knew what was going on. They were up in the air. They were here. They could see. How come somebody wasn't calling Richmond saying, "Hey, in Charlottesville, they need help. They don't know how to handle this. They're not set to handle this. We shouldn't be expected to handle it. This is a hopefully once in a lifetime thing." You know, we need to deal with that. And what we should be talking about now is how do we keep that from happening again? How do we keep it from happening again? And if West Bellamy can convince me that the statues have to go in order for this community to start to heal and that it will make a difference, then I'm okay. But when we take them down, I want the National Guard here. I want them standing here for 30 days while we're taking them down and protecting our town and our county while that goes on. I don't think that's the answer.
I initially, here's how my thinking has evolved. Initially, I said taking down these statues will not change history. It was an ugly time of our history. These statues make us nostalgic and remember this history, unfortunately, but removing these statues will not change what happened in U.S. history in Charlottesville and Virginia, period. My thinking has evolved since then, and it's evolved since then because I've gained some perspective as a new father, as someone who's like a business owner that plans to be around for a long period of time, and someone who's seen like the last 15 months of how the national news has manipulated this story and painted a brush of Charlottesville that's not the case. And I've gone to family functions in Long Island where my family's from, my wife's family, and they said the same thing, like, Charlottesville is, what's going on down there?
Yeah.
So, you know, and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, and it pisses me off. Where I'm going with this, my thinking has evolved, Ray, where I'm like, if it's causing this much trouble, why not we just move them, put them in a museum, take them down, and change the conversation?
And maybe have the trouble all at once and be done with it and
Rip it off.
And move on. Rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah, that can make some sense. Somebody, I don't know who it was, some politician, I think, said, hey, we need to, or civic minded person said, let's not take them down, but let's make sure people understood what that war was all about and some of the horrible things that happened. And maybe we need some, not less statues, maybe we need more statues. Maybe we need statues of African Americans that have contributed to this community. There's certainly plenty of them. You know, it's interesting to me that this little town can't get together and figure out how to solve this problem.
Especially with so many intelligent folks. Why is all this stuff happening in this little town? Is it because the University of Virginia is here? Why is all this happening? Why do we have this cacophony of chaos and turmoil?
Well, it's interesting. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist on this. I think the alt-right, when we said, hey, there's this thing about the statues and Wes and his niece or whoever it was and whatever, I think the alt-right said, what a chance. Bunch of liberal college student people.
They saw an opportunity to manipulate.
I absolutely do. Don't forget, well over 90%, maybe well over 99% of the people that came here and caused the trouble did just that. They came here and caused the trouble. It wasn't our citizens.
Yeah, the guy from Ohio who's in court right now drove 13 hours to spend the rest of his life in jail.
Yeah, they're crazy people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. And if we're going to invite them to our community by not taking a statue down in the right way or something like that, we have to be smarter about what we do. I don't. Are there some people, and probably they're my age and older, that are really stuck on this statue thing? Sure there are, but I think it's a minority. I think if you talk to the great majority of people in this town, black or white, they couldn't care less about the statues, one way or another. We just don't want them causing any trouble. What's the easiest way to solve this problem?
You're on fire today. I want to wind down the interview. Ray Caddell, our guest, guys. He is fantastic. Real estate broker extraordinaire, musician extraordinaire, running a conglomerate of bands through his company, Kool Kats, Inc. I mean, this guy is just talented individual. Charlottesville, we closed the show with the same question. Is Charlottesville, Virginia a better place in 2018 than when you first arrived in 1987? You have the benefit of 31 years in one town. I've been here 18. You have 13 years more than me. Is it better today?
Yeah,
than
it
when
really
you first
is.
got here?
It really is. And I have heard some of your other guests answer that question not as positively, I think, as I'm going to. Yeah, it really is. Do we have some racial problems that we need to heal? Sure. I think we have economic problems that we have to heal as much or more than racial. Sure. Is every town dealing with that kind of stuff? Yeah, they didn't all make the national news, but there's stuff going on like this everywhere. But in terms of the economy, in terms of jobs, in terms of unemployment, in terms of residential real estate prices, in terms of what we were talking earlier about the Pavilion and the Paramount and the Southern and the Jefferson and John Paul Jones. What an embarrassment of riches of live entertainment venues we have in this little town.
Breweries, wineries, the
That
outdoors.
whole, where'd all that come from?
I mean, it's ridiculous. I feel like I'm living in this cosmopolitan big town.
Hey, let me say one thing. Do I have a moment to talk about the wineries for a second?
Yeah.
So here's the winery thing that confuses me, and I spoke to the Board of Supervisors about
You're talking about the party piece, having the events at the wineries?
Well, here's my problem. So I get it if I have a winery and I want to have wedding receptions there. And that's really what we're talking about, wedding receptions. And I get it if you live next door that you might not want to see that all the time. And I probably ought to go talk to you and say, Jerry, let's figure this out. You're worried about access? I'm going to put a driveway over here. You're worried about stuff being done by 11 o'clock at night? We'll stop at 11 o'clock at night. Maybe you don't want live entertainment. There's a winery, Keswick Vineyards. I got a special use permit. It has
Alan Cindy's.
That's right.
Yeah.
They don't have live entertainment there, and when they have DJs, they have to play through their system.
Yeah.
Castle Hill also got a special use permit. Here's something you don't know. So if you're a musician, you're standing on the stage at Castle Hill, and you're playing, everybody's dancing, and there's a balcony upstairs. In the corner, tucked under that balcony, is a miniature traffic light, and it's red, yellow, and green, and it has a decibel meter attached to it.
That's amazing.
And if it's blowing green, everything's fine, and if it's blowing yellow, you're getting a little too loud, and if it's red, you're way too loud, and the venue reserves the right to pull the plug.
Get out. And have they done that?
So when I went to work there, the first time, we've been there many times, when I went to work there the first time, I met with the management. I said, listen, people are very concerned about us because we're a 12-piece band. They said, must be loud, must be loud. I said, no, the one-piece DJ, that's the loud guy, not the 12-piece band. So I talked to him about that. I said, do me a favor. I said, if you pull the plug, it's like a $30,000 problem, and we're going to end up with some judge talking about it. I said, if you have a problem,
tap me on the shoulder.
Come up and see me, okay? So we're playing, everything's dancing, and I see the woman standing over there, and she has her iPhone, and she's filming. So I figure it's for, like, the court case coming up over playing too loud or something. So I walked off the stage, and I went over, I said, is there a problem? She said, no, I never realized how wonderful you were. Meanwhile, the light's burning red up there.
That's awesome.
So the winery thing, I get it from the neighbor's perspective, but here's what you have to always remember about weddings at a winery. They're almost always from out-of-town people. They stay in hotels.
Spend a ton of money.
They spend a ton of money.
Yeah.
They use many times our bands, our florists, our
Camera
event
limousine,
planners, camera
transportation.
limousine, Jen Ferriello.
Yeah.
You know.
Robert Ratifi, yeah.
Absolutely. So that's great for everybody. Nobody comes to a destination wedding to Charlottesville for one day.
Right.
They're here for 3 days
At
usually.
least, yeah.
They're staying at the Omni or the
Boar's
Residence
Head.
City. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, because it's mostly high-end stuff.
Sure.
So they spend all that money, and they get done, and they get in their cars, and they go home. And here's what they don't leave behind. They don't leave behind their children for us to educate, which is the number one cost.
So you're saying it's essentially the best kind of person for Charlottesville and Central
absolute
Virginia.
best.
Yeah.
The absolute best.
Come into our town.
No pollution.
Spend 3 days. Don't kill our roads.
Yep.
Don't leave trash. Don't leave our kids to educate. Don't leave people incarcerated in the jails
Yep.
for us to rehabilitate. And give us your money and leave.
No pollution. Not making anything.
Well said.
Nothing. And I talked to the Board of Supervisors, and you could see a little light behind a couple of their eyes. I said, "Are you kidding me?"
Who gave it resistance?
I said,
Was it Randolph? Was it Anna?
No, he was okay.
Yeah?
And a little bit.
Yeah.
Listen, what a tough job. I've been asked to run several times. Well, who wants that job? People are just going to come in once a week and yell at you? I mean, come on. That's crazy. I get that they have to worry about the guy next door. I just don't think they understand or understood completely. They do now. And I forget what the number was last year. It was some incredible number, $30 or $40 million spent in the wedding industry in our town, and again,
I think it was more than that. Yeah.
they leave and just the next people come in. It's not, they don't, like I said, they don't leave their kids behind for us to educate.
And the person that's the neighbor of the winery has got to realize that if this winery is successful, their property value is going to skyrocket.
Well, you would think so.
When Pippin Hill came to 29 South, 29 South was just farms.
Well,
now Pippin Hill has become the epicenter.
Here's how far I go back with Pippin Hill. So I got a call one day from Lynn Easton, who is the owner with her husband at Pippin Hill, who's
also owned Red Pump Kitchen.
Right. Yeah, this is long before that. Yeah. And her husband retired as president of Orient Express Hotels. So I knew him actually from before they even met. I knew him from playing Charleston Place.
The Orient Express also at one time was running and owning Keswick, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they said, "Hey, we're having a little dinner meeting. Would you come? We want to talk about some stuff." So Lynn Easton's a huge client of mine. And I said, well, of course.
Sure.
So I showed up, and there was, their favorite band leader, their favorite photographer, their favorite caterer, their favorite this, their favorite that. And they put up on the screen the plans for Pippin Hill. They had just optioned the property. And they put up the screen, and they said, here's what we're thinking about doing here. What do you think? What do they call that, a charrette or something?
Yeah.
They all get together and do that. And
when you saw it, were you like, this is going to be so successful?
It was so interesting. Well, here's why I knew it was going to be successful. First of all, nobody runs a better wedding than Lynn.
Sure.
Second of all,
she has champagne taste.
Dean, yeah. Second of all, Dean is a very, very specific guy. I mean, but even more importantly than that, you know what used to be on the site of Pippin Hill?
No.
The county fair. So we'd go to the county fair every year, all of us, and look around and say, "Oh my God, it's gorgeous! It's gorgeous! It's gorgeous!" I said,
who do they buy the land from?
Some farmer owned it and had leased it to the county fair forever.
Really? And they just came in.
And so now, my son's mother-in-law called me and said, "My daughter would like to get married in Charlottesville." She said, "We're not from there. We're the 3 best places to get married."
What'd you say?
And she said, I said, "Well, isn't that budget dependent in some way?" She said, "I didn't ask what anything costs."
She said, "There's no budget." That's amazing.
I said, Keswick,
Yeah. You said
Pippin Hill.
Did you put Trump in there?
No, but not for any political. I was just at Trump 2 weeks ago, not for any political
Because
reason.
the Almoral estate, the Almoral house, where
Pretty spectacular
Patricia
up there.
used to live.
Yep.
People don't realize that the Trump weddings don't happen at the winery.
That's right.
They happen up the
on the
mountain.
hill, yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the third one I put in was Veritas.
Yeah, Veritas is nice.
But we enjoy working at Trump with Patrick and them out there. We were just out there 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Patrick Butler, I think.
Yeah. So we ended up in Pippin Hill, and they did a fabulous job, and that's a perfect example of why the Board of Supervisors should be saying, we need some more wineries that have events at them.
Do you not worry about the bubble bursting on the wineries and the breweries?
That's not my job.
No.
That's
You're
not my
just
job to
saying,
worry about that.
Let's have them in here, and the best will rise to the top, and the worst will go away.
Sure. Or they might not go away, just might be different price points
Different
for
price
people.
points. Yeah. In that scenario, I recently got married. So in that scenario, Pippin is the highest price point in Charlottesville and Central Virginia by far. I think probably this.
And the busiest.
Yeah. I think,
how about that?
Well, it's the nicest.
Yep.
I think probably the second highest is Trump. And I'm speaking from perspective. My wife and I got married there. We got married there in 2017, and it was freaking expensive.
up on the hill?
Yeah. And Kluge's old, it was amazing. We had perfect day, perfect weather. Our guests were like, we've never seen anything like this. Which, it's the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's very few that you can get views like that. Veritas, probably the cheapest of those 3. I think it probably goes Pippin 1, Trump 2, third most expensive, maybe Alan Cindy at Keswick.
I don't know, because I've never worked there, because they don't have live entertainment there. So I don't know. I always hear great stuff about events there.
Yeah. Veritas was surprisingly affordable.
Yeah, I think that when Keswick gets back open, I think that'll get back into the game there too. Yeah.
Yeah. Ray Caddell, thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure.
I appreciate you. Ray Caddell, where can we find you? Where can we follow you? Talk to us about your brand. Get some information.
Sure. Well, we may talk about this someday. My brand's a little fragmented because I have RayCaddellRealEstate.com, of course, but I also have GreatPartyBands.com, which is sort of my umbrella, and then I also have BigRayAndTheCoolKats.com. So I don't know where to find me. But if you Google Ray Caddell, you'll find me.
Follow him on Facebook. The guy's fantastic.
I have fun.
Your stories from the road are so entertaining. I enjoy even how you put in perspective the accident that you had in your vehicle where you hit a deer. I mean, you find a way to find make light of
What
it.
are you going to do? I bought that car brand new
The Subaru?
2 years ago, July. It's a Ford.
Okay.
And it has 71,000 miles on it, so I drive a lot. And a lot of those are at
On the road.
and a lot of those are at 2:00 in the morning, coming home from a job. I like to come home a lot. I don't stay over much, except if we're flying or something. So yeah, you can read about van life on the road, some of the stories anyway. And we just had a fun job last week with Clara McCaskill, of all people, United States Senator, Democrat from Missouri, got beat in the whole Kavanaugh thing and all in what's primarily a red state. And yeah, I meet some great people. We've done inaugural balls for. I played an inaugural ball for everybody from Bush 1 forward, including 2 Obamas. Yeah, we played the Trump inaugural ball in the Library of Congress, and there was a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and it was Paul Ryan. He said,
Paul Ryan.
He said, Big Ray, do you have a microphone for me? I'm like, yeah. He said, would you like to meet the president and John Elway? I said, nobody's ever said that to me before.
Who are you more excited about meeting? John Elway's a pretty cool dude.
I had met President Trump before. John
John
Elway,
Elway,
not only a cool dude, he's a giant. You don't realize how big these football players are.
Was he struggling with walking?
Till you stand. He was limping a little, yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
You could see the beat up on his body?
Yeah, when you that's a whole other show, but wow.
Can you come back?
Anytime, man. Call me
He
anytime.
made us look better, guys. His name is Ray Caddell. This show, thanks to the fine folks right there at Greenberry's Coffee. For more than 25 years, they've been powering Charlottesville and Central Virginia as Charlottesville's longest coffee roasters. I'm Jerry Miller. This interview is going to live in totality and forever on ilovecville.com. I encourage you to check it out. We have Lloyd Snook, the former chair of the Democratic Party, on Thursday. He's going to join us to talk anything Charlottesville related.
And he's a genius, by the way.
Lloyd Snook's office is right there.
Yeah, I know Lloyd well.
Yeah, I see you every day.
And
He's
by the way,
fantastic.
Lloyd Snook, a very fine classical vocalist.
Really?
Get him to talk to you
I
about
will
that.
ask him.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get him to sing.
Yeah, you should.
April Dent Ward, a real estate agent, on Friday on the I Love CVille show. Thank you for joining us. As always, please be good to each other, Charlottesville. Enjoy your day.
It's been fun, huh? Anytime.
You can tell that you've done this one.
Yeah. I had done some.
We went, and how long did we go? Like close to 90 minutes there? J-Dubs?
Yeah, plus we weren't done.
Dude, it was so awesome. I felt like that was like 9 minutes. Didn't you?
Yeah.
Once we got on the air.
I did